Very much to DIFI for hosting this event. My name is BJ Lawson. I'm a physician, a father, and a concerned citizen that has been watching over the past decade, over my lifetime, but especially actually over the past 8 years, as the principles of good government that we should all strive to uphold as Americans have been evaporated. We have been suffering a tremendous burden of a government that just doesn't know when to stop. And it's not that government is necessarily our savior or necessarily always the enemy, but we desperately need a government that follows rules and serves the American individuals as opposed to corporate interests. I really look forward to the opportunity to engage tonight and talk about some of the challenges we face. Just first thinking about good government. How good can our government be when our congressional representatives don't even read the bills before they vote on them? How good can our congressional representatives be when they delegate rulemaking to unelected bureaucrats and corporate lobbyists? How good can our representatives be when they start treating legislation like Christmas trees and piling on additional ornaments just to buy enough votes to pass legislation that probably isn't going to help in the first place? And finally, when are we going to realize that our federal government has rules and principles that we can unite among as Americans, as opposed to constantly being divided into little partisan boxes and beating each other up? This second issue, this persistent divisiveness within our society, has become so toxic. And I'm especially appalled that we continue to play the partisan blame game, even in the wake of very clear signals being given by the voters. 2 years ago, the voters resoundingly rejected an intellectually bankrupt neoconservative philosophy and elected a majority of Democrats to Congress. Yet today, we are still suffering from unprecedented expansion of executive power. Our troops are still occupying Iraq and Afghanistan, and we have seen no change in the way that our government does business, despite fantastic transformations and the wish for transformation on behalf of the electorate. What is going on? Finally, we have this issue of our addiction, our unsustainable addiction to debt financing to continually grow our economy. And that is the issue, frankly, that I am most concerned about. The economic precipice that we have reached as a nation is really a consequence of our beginning to realize that we cannot indefinitely grow our economy simply by issuing new debt. I look forward to the opportunity to explore these issues in more detail, and I appreciate an active discussion. Thank you very much.
Press, go ahead.
Thank you and good evening. It's great to be back on the UNC campus and to be here with the DIFI and with students from all over the campus, all over the state, probably all over the country, to engage in this discussion about the 4th District Congressional race. This campus is the place where my political views were formed. I grew up in East Tennessee in a very nice small town, but I really wasn't prepared when I came to this part of North Carolina and to this campus for what I would encounter. It was the time when the civil rights movement was sweeping across the South. The sit-ins were occurring, and I must say, what happened here outside the classroom was just as important to my education and my formation as what happened inside the classroom. And my political views, my religious views, my social views were all affected. And I didn't think at that point that I would run for office someday, far from it. I was a member of the DIFI Society. I guess developed some modest debating skills. I was a member of the student legislature. My one claim to fame in the student legislature was getting a bill passed by one vote, considered very controversial, to say to the merchants of Chapel Hill, you need to serve all people. So we were picketing the theaters, the restaurants, trying to get this small, quote, liberal town to do what needed to be done in terms of removing the barriers of segregation and discrimination. But what I saw in the streets of Chapel Hill shaped me for the rest of my life. And as I said, I wasn't going to run for office, but I knew I would always attend to politics. And that was sealed a few years later when I was in Washington for the summer. I decided I'd like to work in the Senate. I was doing that. I crowded into the Senate gallery in 1964 when the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed. 3 short years after we were passing student legislature members here. That's remarkable. That almost never happens in politics. So it taught me that enough good people working together could right ancient wrongs. It also taught me that there are times when we need to enlist the aid of government. You know, anti-government ideology and rhetoric wasn't of much use in that. We needed to figure out how to make government the instrument of our common purpose. Well, I knew I wanted to come back to this part of North Carolina. I managed to get a teaching job over at that other institution down the road. We raised our family. My wife's here tonight. We raised our family here. We've had a wonderful life here. But we know that this is, we're fortunate to be here. I expect you all feel the same way. Many of you have chosen to come here. But what we've also learned is that my work in the Congress, I ended up going to the Congress and never dreamed I would represent this area of the legislature. Was that a 30-second sign over there? That was the stop sign. All right, I'll pick it up later. Anyway, to represent this area in Congress is beyond my fondest dreams. I've learned a few things which I'll try to communicate tonight about what I think our region's stake is in good public policy.